everybody.
Good
Welcome
morning.
to Azure Flash News. It is May
3rd.
It was May Day the other day.
Yeah, but tomorrow's Star Wars Day.
It most certainly is. And the 4th be with you.
You better believe it, and also with you.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you,
Also
Father.
with you, thank you. Did your kids get any May Day baskets? Do you guys do that in your neighborhood?
We do not. I'm
Yeah,
intrigued, though.
There were people in our neighborhood that used to do that when we first moved here, but
Not so much anymore?
Yeah.
Huh.
It's just kind of like, it's like usually this little cup full of candy and they kind of hang it on your door.
Oh, right on. Welcome to
They're-
May.
Yeah.
I like
welcome to
it. It's good. Okay,
Anyway.
fair enough.
May. Okay.
So we're building up to Build next week, the Build conference, for those
Building
of
to
you who
Build.
aren't familiar.
Very meta.
And in some respect, I won't say we're under information embargo, but there's a lot of things I think being
Yeah.
kept close to the vest so that they can make splash announcements at Build.
Yeah, I mean, it's kind
Having
of weird.
said that, though, there's still some good stuff.
Oh yeah, man. There's gonna be some good stuff. I mean, sometimes we kind of like announce stuff
Yeah.
before build.
Yep.
We don't make a big deal about it because the thing is that stuff keeps happening week after week after week.
It
never
does.
stops.
The world doesn't stop spinning, man.
And so you might even find some stuff in the portal or whatever that you're like, hey, that's new. But
Yeah.
there's been no announcement. That's because they kind of make some announcements
Mm-hmm.
and build and.
Yeah, but you'll see some keynote announcements, I think, in the direction we're moving towards
No.
edge stuff. And
Yeah, now I also want to say something about build. Build has traditionally been, if you are a WPF, Windows desktop, Microsoft Store app developer, you should go to build. But if you don't do that,
it was
then you
when it was PDC or Mix or, yeah, all the different
Right.
flavors of conferences
Right.
we used to have.
So I just want to make sure everybody knows that if you're involved with cloud, even if you're a cloud infrastructure person, go to build, go watch build,
Yep.
whatever. It's one of my customers that I work with, he's a total infrastructure person. He said half of the sessions are on just Azure
Yeah.
stuff
Yep.
of all kinds. So don't think of build anymore. If you're out there thinking about whether you would or wouldn't go to build, don't think of build as a developer conference anymore. There's a lot of developer stuff.
Oh, yeah,
for sure,
absolutely.
without a doubt. But you have to remember that being a developer means using cloud infrastructure.
Everybody's a developer in the cloud.
That's right. So
And also, don't be surprised to see non-Windows stuff talked about.
yeah.
Yay! And I'll be there. I will actually be
Oh,
at
you're
the Build.
going?
Yep, I'll be at Build
Oh,
next
man,
week.
you're lucky.
My customer is sending about, well, I can't disclose numbers, and I probably shouldn't, but a fair amount of
Tens?
people. Yes.
Tens of people.
Yep. So
Yeah.
I'll be there actually helping to broker conversations between my customer and engineering teams,
Yep,
program
I have-
managers.
I
If
have
you're
some-
there and you see me, don't grab me because you'll scare me, but tap me on the shoulder and say, hey, Rick, I really like Azure Flash News. Or feel free to say, hey, Rick, we think Azure Flash News would be better if you guys did X.
Yeah.
So yeah, look, track me down. Happy
Yeah.
to love to say hi if you're out there. But yeah, I'm looking forward to Build. I mean, I'm excited not just for my customers to be exposed, and I'm also excited to kind of, because we don't necessarily have a lot of insight into some of the secret announcements, and
Yeah.
in fact, we don't have any insight. Let's be honest.
It's true, actually.
Mary Jo Foley probably knows more about what's
Well-
coming than we do.
I mean, the thing is that we just don't hear about them beforehand. We just hear about
No.
them when they announce.
Yeah, and it's by design, right? So
Yeah,
we've got
so,
some good subjects today.
we
We've got
digress a
some
little bit.
PowerShell serverless goodness. We've got some supercomputing.
We're gonna go cray.
We're gonna go cray on you.
We're just gonna leave it at that.
Yep, absolutely. Some recommendations stuff with AI.
Oh yeah.
Some enhancements for monitoring with some tools you already probably know. So
That's the understatement of the century.
well, yeah, exactly. So by design. Anyway, so for those of you that don't know, Microsoft Azure has a capability called Azure Functions. Okay.
what is Rick? What is
Otherwise,
special about Azure
otherwise known as serverless. Right?
serverless? It's different.
It is. So basically, what you do is you take essentially the equivalent of, I'll say a class, because you probably have some private functions, some public functions.
Okay.
You've
class.
got a few things, the equivalent of a class, and basically what you do is you say, I want to go run this class in Azure, but here's my,
You mean like a controller.
or controller,
Yeah.
or think about it like a console application. Here's my
Okay.
entry point.
Yep.
Now, what's cool about functions is your entry point doesn't necessarily have to just be input variables, because you can call it via HTTPS, HTTP. You can invoke it, similar to how you would invoke an executable with command line arguments.
Yeah.
Or you can actually have that method, that entry point, triggered by events. So, for example, when somebody uploads a new blob into blob storage, when an event grid event is fired, when Cosmos DB has something happen,
And which an event grid event could be?
anything, like anything.
Like anything. I mean, you can create the event grid.
Exactly.
And I think that you can even back up and say that an HTTP call is an event.
Absolutely.
The event
Absolutely.
is I got called, I got triggered.
Yep.
So it doesn't. It's like it's all about what happens before and how it gets called and how it calls you. So
exactly.
Azure Functions is kind of a unique way to kind of think about a pipeline of events and data storage, like maybe Event Hub.
Yep. Absolutely.
Or like you said, Event Grid just tells you an event happens and then you can act on it.
Yeah. So to that point, what's cool about it is, again, you put your code out there and it will scale for you. And in fact, it's a successor to Azure Web Jobs. For those of you that are familiar with Web Jobs, this is kind of a successor to that, in that you don't have to deploy an Azure web app. You basically still have an app service plan, but it's more focused around the functions themselves. Yeah. So you provision it out into Azure and say, you've got two ways to do it. You can say just scale on demand, or you can say run it in an app service plan, and this is how I want things to kind of the elasticity to kick in.
And you can kind of think of, we call the first one the consumption plan, which basically you pay for every time it runs. And so if it's not running,
right, you don't. Well, so you pay for the number of times it runs, plus the amount of time it took to run, plus the amount of memory consumed.
That's right. And so, but if it's not running, if there's nobody calling it, like in the middle of the night, you pay zilcho. So what you can do is, if you want reserved capacity, which can in some cases improve performance, you can use an app service plan which says, I want 2 cores and 4 gigs of RAM. I want my function to run inside of there. I want dedicated capacity. That's fine too. Sometimes that works.
You can, so by doing that though, you can also isolate it. So I have a customer who is actually taking functions, but then they're putting in an app service plan. And then as of today, we're using an app service environment to actually put that into a subnet so that they can securely call on-prem resources from their Azure functions.
Interesting.
So let's say, for example, you've got a search cluster, or you've got something on-prem that you need to interact with. You can do that very reliably, very securely by incorporating these functions. So you're still not in the business of babysitting a bunch of things. You're writing your code, you're deploying it. There's a little bit more overhead with ACEs and some of that stuff, but at the same time, if you've already provisioned it for other purposes, doesn't matter. It's already there.
And I think that Azure Functions Premium has the ability to put your functions with an IP address in your VNet.
I believe that's correct. Yes.
Yeah. So up until this point, just recently, Azure Functions was only public. Or not. I mean, it was only in the multi-tenant instance and didn't have any VNet connectivity. Except if you did it in an app service environment, ACE, as Rick said, he called it an ACE. Just be aware that's what that is. And then, but now we've seen that Azure Web Apps have the ability to have your code have access to your virtual network and
with private IPs.
Your private IPs and across ExpressRoute be able to address things on-prem. Azure Functions are getting that capability too.
Absolutely, which is fantastic. So the cool thing about, so we have 2 concepts in Azure Functions. One of them is just a traditional Azure function. It's meant to be basically transient. It gets invoked, it does its thing, and it goes away. Some people said this is awesome, but I need something that runs a little bit longer, because what I'd like to do is I'd like to take Azure Functions, loosely couple them with, say, message queues or storage accounts, or do something, but I want to create a workflow. I want to do this, and I want to do this, and I want to do this, but I need something to manage the workflow. I need something to monitor. I need something to think about elasticity. Maybe I don't want it to automatically scale. I want to scale it using like an observer pattern. So we then introduced a concept called durable functions. A durable function is something that actually runs, it stays active. Okay, so it's not invoked, it does something, it goes away. It actually is like having a Windows service that you click start on. Okay. So what's cool about the durable function is you can actually use it as a workflow. So you actually have activities. So you've got functions that are called activities. And you can do checkpointing, you can do rollbacks, you can do status updates, you can do a lot of the different things that you would expect from something like Windows Workflow Foundation or some of the BizTalk, right? You've got, now you're not writing functoids, but it's similar in that respect. In that, again, I'm working with a customer who's actually doing this, creating a workflow using durable functions. And the cool thing about it, though, is you can get the state of the activity. So you can report on progress at any given time to the durable function orchestrator, which is really, really cool. So the context binding actually changes from an event to the context of the durable function. So you pass that down to the activity functions, and that's how they become aware of each other.
That's
so
awesome.
It's super cool. So, but that's not why we're here.
That's just The platform.
That's just what it does.
But here's what we're going to add to the platform.
So what we've done is we've got two versions of functions. Version 1, was our original rollout, which supported a couple different languages, PowerShell being one of them, right?
Yeah.
Well,
sort of.
Yeah, sort of. Yeah, we'll say sort of.
I mean, it was all built on a .NET framework.
Right.
.NET framework, right?
Yep.
So that means Windows, not cross-platform.
Well, you had Java. You had, I mean, but not
those,
Linux. You weren't running it on Linux.
Yeah. So it was like. I think that it was well known in the beginning that since it was on the .NET framework, it needed to be rewritten on a $.NET Core,
right.
which opened up
a ton
whole
of
new
doors.
world.
Ton of doors.
Yeah, a ton of doors.
Absolutely.
And one of them is
we can now run PowerShell in Azure Functions v2.
Yeah.
So
in other words,
all
you
the
can just
goodness. Yep.
upload your PowerShell script and let it be invoked. It runs a PowerShell script and then it's done.
Exactly. All the goodness that, you know, especially for infrastructure people who maybe are doing workflow around request to add users to RBAC, or a request to add a user to a resource group because they're now a developer, or maybe they left. This can actually incorporate this workflow, which, by the way, can also include manual intervention. So you can have an activity pause until something happens for it to resume. So let's say you got to click accept or deny, that activity will go into basically a pause state until they get the feedback that they're looking for, and then it'll continue on. So you can now bring PowerShell. We've got Python. Python was in experimental mode for quite a while because we were trying to figure out how to optimize not having to call the Python executable every single time. We've gotten past that. So Python is there now. We've got Java. We've got JavaScript, I believe. We've got C#.
Yeah. So
here's a list. Right? PHP.
Oh,
it's NA right now.
GA, JavaScript is GA, F# is GA, Java is GA.
Yep.
Which I have a customer who's using Java.
Awesome.
It works very well.
Yeah. So there's Python in preview.
preview.
Now that we've gotten
TypeScript is in GA, which is kind of like JavaScript.
Yep.
And then we're still working. Oh,
that's saying not GA. Oh, that's outdated.
Outdated documentation.
Yeah.
That never happened.
No. Hey, the cool thing is though.
Look,
scroll down to the bottom.
People here.
Yep.
Oh, somebody already did it.
Oh, dude.
Here it is. Here it is.
Barrett Nashville beat us to the punch.
Yep,
we were going to show it. So this is all hosted on GitHub. So it's non sequitur, but obviously this documentation is all hosted on GitHub.
Yep.
So you can actually put in a request.
Yep.
We go make the change. The pull request happens. All that fancy stuff happens.
And actually, you could fork the
Yes,
GitHub repo.
yes. Make the change.
Make the change and do a pull request. If
exactly.
you want to.
Yes, you absolutely can do that.
You can actually fix the
The
documentation.
cool thing is, oh, by the way, you become a contributing author if that pull request is accepted. Seriously, so if you scroll up to the top,
Okay, so here
and
we
you
go.
can see the contributors,
Right there.
if your pull
Link
request,
mailing.
if your merge is accepted,
I didn't know that.
yeah, you become an actual author of that document.
That is awesome.
So I encourage you, if you want to become famous,
Put
and
that on your resume.
Absolutely.
A contributor to the
to the
Azure
Microsoft
docs.
documentation.
Wow, cool. Anyway, okay.
So PowerShell, it's available V2, it's in preview. Go play with it, go look at it. If you've got a ton of PowerShell and you've been waiting to get off V1, now is your opportunity not only to do that, but also before it goes GA, to influence anything that you think might be missing or might be gapped.
Help us test.
Yeah.
I mean, I just want to kind of reemphasize this. If you're an infrastructure person
Yep.
and you know PowerShell,
Stay with PowerShell.
The power of functions is at your disposal now. So if you just have code that you need for it to run, this is such a big deal for you.
There's so many midichlorians in this stuff, you would not believe it. We are talking about Jedi Masters here. Yes. That's what gives people the force.
Oh.
It's the midichlorian count in your bloodstream.
See, that just shows you how much tomorrow.
Yeah, see?
No.
Sorry, I'm getting ahead of myself.
All right, here we go.
All right.
Are we cray-cray?
We are cray-cray for the cray.
We're cray-cray for cray.
Cray Cluster Store to be
Cray
example.
Cluster Store.
Or
That's
to be
right.
specific, I should say.
Um,
So talk to me, Goose. We've got accelerate supercomputing in the cloud.
Yeah,
Okay?
so,
we're
I
not talking about bare metal hybrid to cloud. We're talking about in the cloud, right?
yeah, I mean, I think these cray clusters can sit in your Azure, in the same data centers.
Okay.
And so you can work with Cray to create and to utilize a cray cluster
Right?
essentially in Azure. I mean,
That
and
is so cool.
that's kind of the basics. But the announcement today is all about the Cray Cluster Store storage system in Azure.
Yeah. So what's cool about it is, so in Azure, it comes with competitive pricing, right? And enables more than 3 times the throughput in gigabits per second per Lustre object storage servers.
And if you're-
OSS,
and
object
if-
storage service.
And if you're a Cray person, you know what that means.
So 3 times more throughput though than is what currently is available with their Lustre offer.
I know what that means.
Okay, yeah,
3
3x
times more.
Yes,
I know what
3x.
that
We know what 3x means.
I mean, I'll be honest. I mean, I don't know Cray.
No,
And I don't,
but this
you
is-
know what I know It's available
in Azure.
in Azure.
It's 3x faster.
Yeah, it's faster. So if
And
you're using it,
if you're using, so you know,
or if you thought you would use it.
Exactly. So the opportunities are
for it.
around definitely HPC, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
If you want to accelerate some high performance computing, if you want to do some simulations, right? You've got Monte Carlo, you've got, there's a whole bunch of different ones that we could throw out there. But
and I think simulation is a big one.
Sim is big, yeah. So, you know, I think that's big when people are doing like, what is the flow dynamics? The fluid, yeah. So there's a bunch of different opportunities here, but again, here's your opportunity to get out of the business of having this giant, well, they're not giant anymore. They don't look like the Whopper from 1984 in War Games. They have condensed in size considerably. But
would you like to play a game?
Shall we play a game? Welcome back, Dr. Faulkner.
Man, we digress so
Yes,
fast.
we do. Anyway, so a great opportunity to get out of the business, treat it like a pet, use it as you need to, turn it off when you're done. I don't know what the consumption model looks like.
I don't either.
But it's in the cloud, so it's got to be better than making a giant CapEx expenditure on-prem.
Yep. So if you're cray-cray.
For the Cray.
For the Cray.
Cluster store.
Do it in Azure.
Right on.
All right. Now I know what this means.
Okay, so talk to me, Goose.
All right. So there are ways to build I can't say it.
Recommendation engine?
Thank you. In Azure, and this article talks a little bit about doing that. I mean, think about it. Recommendation engines are useful in scenarios where it's like, if you liked this, you might also like this.
Correct. Well, and what's interesting to me is I think people default to retail when you think about a recommendation engine, right? Mm-hmm. But I see it being broader than, hey, if you like the Stephen King book, you might like this other book by, you know, so-and-so.
That's the obvious example.
Yeah, right. Or let's say, for example, I'm looking at a medical document and I'm researching osteoporosis, okay? You get to the bottom, it's like, oh, here's a whole bunch of other things that might be not just related to osteoporosis, but we're finding people who are looking at osteoporosis are also looking at these other conditions. So it's not just retail people. And I think, you know, if you want stickiness, if you want people to stay within the construct of your app, your content, your information, this is a great way to keep them in your system, right? Well, by proposing these alternative kind of components.
And I think retail has already proven that to be true. Clearly. Because you can get lift in your sales basket size, whatever you want to call it, by having these recommendations. People are
Absolutely.
like, oh yeah, you know, I do need that.
I do need that extra hookup service with my new refrigerator.
That's right.
Yeah. I just went through that process.
That's right. So there are different descriptions of different ways to do recommendation engines. So there isn't a, I mean, geez. Look at
this is similarity-based algorithm.
No, this is my favorite one.
Matrix factorization algorithm. Which one?
Valpal
Wabbit.
I love that one. That one's all about text analytics. I just love that. Valpal Wabbit.
Valpal Wabbit.
Yes.
Be very quiet. I'm hunting wabbits.
I'm hunting wabbits. I'm sorry, I just can't.
No, it's awesome.
I chuckle every time I do that.
It's pretty amazing, is what it is.
I mean, there's just all kinds of algorithms you can run here, and you know, this article is a kind of a state of the union.
It really is. Yep.
On the different ways you can build a recommending system in Azure, and wow. I mean, there's more ways than you can shake a stick.
Clearly. What does that mean?
I don't know, but I'm from the South, so I say it.
But I'm from the North and I say it. But what am I shaking a stick at? What kind of stick do I have? And why am I
shaking it? I mean, it's like,
what? Okay.
I don't know.
Well, there's got to be some history there. If you know, tweet us at Azure Flash News. I would love to hear from you, and I'm sure I can get you some swag. But if you know there's more than you can shake a stick at.
If you understand where that comes from, or if you just look it up right now, we wouldn't know the difference.
No, we would not. You could say, I've known this for years.
Yeah, we wouldn't know.
Yeah. No, so the point here, though, is there's lots of different ways of doing it. Now, let me ask you this, and maybe this is an unfair question to put you on the spot, but
that's all right.
The different types of algorithms, are they optimized or specific for different types of scenarios, or are they just different approaches to solve the same problem?
No, I think that, I mean, if you do the math behind the scenes and the way that you find the local and global maximums and minimums, which is essentially what you're doing in matrix math, that's what's going on. It's all linear algebra.
Oh, it is. So they're not doing like nearest neighbor or greedy algorithms. They're doing something more about.
I don't know what they're doing.
Okay.
Completely. A lot of it is matrix math. A lot of times you're just kind of finding the closest point between all these different things using matrices. It's a lot of that's what it is. I'm sure that there are some here that are more sophisticated than that.
Sure. Oh, I'm sure they're all crazy sophisticated.
essentially they all work a little bit differently. And because they work a little bit differently, they perform differently in different in situations. And so you'll find that for certain scenarios, different algorithms work better, which makes sense because each problem class is a little different. And so there's a lot of research that goes on around how do we devise new algorithms and math systems to answer some of these AI questions.
Of course. Now that we've got all this
and you can see
cloud
here,
compute power at our fingertips.
Well, you can see here that I mean, just look at all these different ways to.
I know, it's
do this
amazing.
stuff. And it's just like, so anyway, so check this out. There's so much you can do. Think about recommendation systems in the general. Don't think of them in the specific around. If people who bought this product also bought this one.
Right.
There's
It's
so
so
many
much
other ways.
more.
Yeah, I mean, it's like, I mean, search is kind of that way already, right? When you search for terms, you're basically, it's a recommender. So just think more generally about if you're looking at this, what other things might be connected to it that you might want to know about.
Yep.
And anyway, so this is kind of state of the union. Think about your recommenders. Think about how you can do that in Azure.
Absolutely.
And Azure ML Service is a great way to kind of do all of that model management stuff.
No, it's just cool. And it's the cool thing is this kind of walks you through it. So that's really exciting.
Yeah.
Yeah, anyway, so definitely
Cool.
if it's something you're interested in, go take a peek. Good stuff.
Yeah, very good stuff. Okay, monitoring. Wow, monitoring can sometimes be like the most boring subject ever.
Well,
but like you gotta
it's a necessary
you gotta
evil,
do it.
right?
It's so important.
It's table stakes. It's whatever you want to call it. But I think there's more to that. When you think about, I would almost gamify it. If I'm just monitoring stuff, I'm probably not. My value proposition is not there. If I'm monitoring and acting, or if it's giving me, Doug's clapping.
Yeah.
It should give you actionable insight into what you're keeping an eye on, right? So for example, if I've got security telemetry, if I've got nefarious actors, if I've got just general utilization, if we're under provisioned, over provisioned, now all of a sudden it starts to get kind of cool, right?
Yeah.
Because you've got
Doug's gonna cry.
But you've got actionable insight to do something to make something better, faster, stronger, more secure, right? That's the whole point of this.
Yeah.
And so you're right. In and of itself, the term monitoring sounds so oatmeal, so plain oatmeal. But then cold, plain oatmeal. But when you put all that stuff on top of it, all of a sudden it's like, wow, that sounds like it'd be a really cool day job.
But at the same time, monitoring, if you think about it, like from a developer operations point of view, that's a lot of times developers, it's easy to say like, done, you go. But that is becoming such a critical part.
Well, that's when DevOps becomes two words, right? Dev and ops. That's when you do put it in the hoop and then the next team grabs it.
Yeah, that's
not anymore.
Not the way it works anymore. You have to work together. And so the developers need to understand what's being monitored and how things are performing so that can be factored into the application.
Did I look like a real basketball player when I did that? Not so much? Okay,
maybe.
good.
No.
Because when I grew up, I was told if you touch basketballs, you get warts. That was the wrestler's mantra. You should never touch a basketball, otherwise you get warts. So if I do look good doing this, it's a bad sign.
It's because you watched the NBA.
Yeah, that's right. Anyway, so monitoring enhancements. But what's cool about this blog post is for VMware physical workloads protected with Azure Site Recovery.
Yeah. So if you're using Azure Site Recovery to protect VMware physical workloads, we've got some better monitoring for you.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
So there's some cool stuff, and specifically, you've got. So some of the stuff you're seeing here, like parameters, CPU utilization, you've got a warning threshold, you've got a critical threshold, right? So I want to be alerted at this bar, but this is when the proverbial monkey throwing the poop hits the fan kind of bar, right? The 95%. That's when all of a sudden you're like, oh, we
really got a problem.
Yeah, Houston, we have a problem.
Yes, we definitely have a problem.
And what's cool about it though too is looking at the interface, looks like it's awful Azure portally.
Yep.
So you're running ASR, you're protecting assets, physical assets on basically VMware, and you're doing it through the Azure portal.
Yeah, and I think that I just think monitoring is such a critical platform capability. And when you start to really centralize your efforts onto the cloud, it's something that's just a part of the platform. You don't have to think about it at all as far as like...
If you do it right.
Well, I mean, I'm saying you don't have to think about the capability being there. The capability is always there.
Oh,
It's
yeah,
just
yeah.
part of the platform.
Yep.
Now, the place where you pick it up, instead of picking it up on-prem, you probably think about, we need a vendor, we need a relationship, we need to license it.
We need an RFS or an RFP.
We need an RFP, we need to requisition some hardware, we need to get it on the network, we need to rack and stack the hardware.
And we need somebody to own it.
And we need somebody to own it.
To babysit the server, to babysit everything that comes with, even if it's
we need
an
a
appliance.
team. We need a team of people that can do the upgrades on that server. Anyway, so but in the cloud,
you're giving me anaphylactic shock.
I know. In the cloud, monitoring is just part of it, and you go in and you say, I want to turn on monitoring. I want to turn on diagnostics logging and metrics.
Put it in this storage account and then monitor that storage account.
Yeah, it's just like, it's not like, this is just part of the platform. And so it just, you start from, I want to monitor, here's what I want to monitor, and that's it. That's where you always start from. You never start from, I need a team, I need a license, I need to start it up, I need to manage it, patch it, upgrade.
We flipped that model upside down and said, what do you want to do? Okay, turn it on.
Go. Yeah.
Yep.
So anyway, while and here's another thing. I'm going to make another point.
Yes, please.
What all did customers who already started using Azure Site Recovery, what all did they have to do to get this new monitoring?
Bupkis.
Zero, nothing. So remember, the last company to deploy email got zero competitive advantage out of it.
What? There's no advantage to hosting your own email server?
Well, but what I'm saying is,
but how do I protect it? How do I make sure that how do I hug it?
But I mean, the thing is that
I'll give you a teddy bear if you want to hug something.
I like to hug teddy bear.
Yeah. So.
If you're looking for a competitive advantage in today's world, waiting to be last is not a competitive advantage. I'm just saying, if you're the last one to go to cloud, that means everybody else already has the advantage.
They've already moved on from that. They've taken that off their plate and they're focusing more on innovation, disruptive technology, business optimization. They're doing the things that are basically catapulting them ahead of you, who said, no, I want to keep my Exchange server on-prem and I'm going to make every excuse under the sun to do that.
So cloud is the same way. Seriously.
Yeah.
There's so many advantages to be taken care of. I tell people don't go to the cloud because it's cheaper.
No.
Actually, it is cheaper, I think.
It can be if you do it right.
It can be cheaper if you do it right.
Exploit the cloud.
But if you're comparing your data center price over Azure virtual machines, I mean, you get out of some CapEx and it changes the calculus, but I'm just saying the big reason you go to the cloud is to change your organization.
Digital transformation.
Yeah, and you can even do that if you're just doing a lift and shift, taking your virtual machines and going to Azure. But if you're just looking at like how much does a VM cost and how much does a VM cost, you're like missing like so much of the calculation.
Totally.
And this is a really good example.
It's a great example
of things that you can just like, when you change the way you work and the way that you utilize the cloud, being able to start from not from I need a monitoring solution and a license.
Right.
Start from I just need to turn it on.
Exactly.
It changes the way you can run your organization.
Completely agree. That's a great soapbox.
Thank you. I should get off now.
No, stay on it. I loved it.
I tell people that people don't go to the cloud because it's a little bit cheaper.
No.
They go to the cloud to change the way they do business, to change the way their IT organization runs, to change the way their IT organization is organized.
Absolutely. Or not just IT. Let's make sure we're not excluding the business units, right? Because it's giving them agility, it's giving them, a lot of opportunities as well. So it's your organization as a whole that benefits. It's not just IT, or it's not just the BU who's trying to do shadow IT, right? Yeah. We want everybody there embracing this as a culture, a corporate culture of, fail fast, DevOps, DevSecOps, do all that good stuff, but embrace it as an organization, not as an individual business unit or division. Yeah. So I'm here. I'm not just eye candy.
We never thought that.
Hey, don't wreck my dreams, man. Don't wreck my dreams.
You're my eye candy.
It's all good.
Yeah,
it's all good. So we're coming up at the top of the hour.
Yeah.
Mark, if anybody had any questions in regards to what we talked about today, how can they get a hold of you?
I'm sure they don't, because I'm so good at explaining.
You did a fantastic job.
But if you do, you can catch me on Twitter at mgarner. That'd be fine. Also, you can send me an email.
Okay.
mgarner@microsoft.com.
Awesome.
I do check my email.
Excellent. And you can reach me via email at rick@microsoft.com. Or we have our Twitter handle is @AzureFlashNews.
And
follow us.
If you're not following
message us.
You need YouTube.
And if you're looking for historical content, or we've got iTunes, we've got YouTube, we've got Stitcher, we've got Google, we've got just about every communications thing that you can think of to get this information and digest it at your leisure, how you want to do it, when you want to do it.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for the MTC, to Doug Splinter for enabling this to happen, to Emily Meckmiller in the back who does all that.
Show?
Yeah, producer.
Thanks,
thank
Emily.
you. Danke schön.
Yeah.
And thank you, viewer. Without you guys, we wouldn't be doing any of this.
Yeah.
And we know you have a day job. So, as I always say, we appreciate you taking the time to listen to our droning. Absolutely. So
hopefully we have a little bit of fun.
yes,
too,
we absolutely. So good stuff next week. Really good stuff. Post build, we'll be talking about all the build announcements. We'll be talking about really cool stuff. Some announcements and partnerships with some different technology companies.
Yeah.
It's come out in news releases, so we can say some cool stuff around VMware and
VMware. Yeah. VMware.
but yeah, so stay tuned. Next week's gonna be really exciting. And like I said, if you're at Build next week and you happen to walk past me, say hi, tap me on the shoulder. I'm gonna have some Azure Flash News swag with me, probably in my back pocket. So hopefully it doesn't get all sweaty from sitting on my butt all day. But if it's there, it's yours. They are good to go.
Yeah, let's do it.
So as I always say, until next time, keep your hands and fingers on the keyboard and your head in the clouds.
Yes, that's it. Thanks, everybody.